The room was deathly quiet. A single slip, a single misstep, and the entire Allied invasion could be doomed. The fate of thousands of lives and the future of the free world rested on the shoulders of a woman no one knew. She wasn't on the battlefield. She wasn't a general. She was a silent codebreaker, locked away in a secret room, racing against time to crack a code that could change history forever. What they didn't know was that her work would remain hidden for decades, buried beneath layers of secrecy and silence. This is the untold story of Elizebeth Smith Friedman, the American cryptanalyst whose genius and courage helped win World War II, yet whose name was erased from history. In the early 20th century, Elizebeth Smith was a linguist and a puzzle lover, fascinated by the art of secret writing. At a time when women were rarely seen in science or intelligence, she carved a path into the shadowy world of cryptography. Before the war, she and her husband, William Friedman, were pioneers in breaking codes for the U.S. government, tackling everything from Prohibition-era bootleggers to foreign spies. But it was during World War II that Elizabeth's work took on a life-or-death urgency. The Nazis and their allies were sending coded messages across the Atlantic, coordinating attacks and sabotage. The Allies needed to intercept and decode these messages to anticipate enemy moves. The problem? The enemy's codes were complex, constantly changing, and nearly impossible to break. Elizebeth was recruited to lead a secret team of cryptanalysts. Her mission? To crack the codes of Nazi spies operating in the Americas. The stakes were staggering. If she failed, the Nazis could cripple the Allied war effort from within, turning the tide of the war in their favor. The work was grueling. Days blurred into nights. Every intercepted message was a puzzle, every cipher a locked door. Elizabeth's team faced constant pressure, knowing that behind every code was a potential disaster. But the enemy was clever. They used sophisticated encryption methods, and their spies were skilled at covering their tracks. One night, Elizabeth intercepted a message that chilled her to the bone. It hinted at a massive sabotage operation targeting American ports, vital supply lines for the Allies. The message was encoded in a new, unbreakable cipher. The clock was ticking. If the sabotage succeeded, thousands of lives would be lost, and the war could drag on for years. Elizabeth's team worked feverishly, piecing together fragments of the code. But the enemy's encryption was unlike anything they had seen. It was a race against time, and failure was not an option. What they didn't know was that Elizabeth had a secret weapon, her unparalleled intuition and deep understanding of language patterns. She began to see patterns where others saw chaos. Slowly, the code began to unravel. After weeks of relentless work, Elizabeth cracked the cipher. The message revealed the exact date and location of the planned sabotage, a coordinated attack on the port of New York. The information was passed up the chain of command, but there was skepticism. Could one woman's code-breaking really be trusted with such critical intelligence? Elizabeth knew the risk. If the information was ignored, countless lives would be lost. If it was acted upon, the Allies could prevent a disaster. She pushed for immediate action, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. On the night of the planned attack, American forces were ready. The port was heavily guarded, and the saboteurs were caught in the act. The operation was foiled, and the supply lines remained intact. the war effort was saved from a devastating blow. But Elizabeth's victory was silent. Her work was classified, her name never mentioned in the headlines. The world would never know the woman who cracked the code that saved a nation. After the war, Elizabeth continued her work in cryptography, helping to build the foundation of modern intelligence. Yet, her contributions were overshadowed by her husband's fame and the secrecy surrounding her missions. For decades, her story remained buried in government archives, a hidden chapter in the history of World War II. Today, historians are finally uncovering the truth about Elizabeth Smith Friedman. Her story is a testament to the power of intellect, perseverance, and courage in the face of impossible odds. She reminds us that heroes don't always wear uniforms or march into battle. They sometimes sit quietly in dark rooms, turning the tide of history with nothing but their minds. History remembers victories, but it often forgets the people who made them possible. And that is the untold spirit.